$4.5 billion. One agency. No clear answers in the Senate. And Don Farrell is suddenly cornered in a political storm he can't explain his way out of. What should have been a routine budget question turns into a full-blown exposure moment as Pauline Hanson goes straight at the National Indigenous Australians Agency and the government behind it. Simple questions get dodged, the figures get delayed, and when the real number drops, just shy of $4.5 billion, the room changes instantly. This isn't just a debate anymore, it's a collapse of control and a political fight exploding in real time.
IAA priorities this year include closing the gaps, implementing the Uluru Statement, developing a new jobs program, delivering First Nations justice, whatever that means, and more. It has also budgeted $31 million to deliver local and regional voice implementation, despite the Prime Minister saying he would not fund the yes or no cases in the coming referendum. Will the Minister please inform the Senate about the NIAA's total budget for 22-23?
That information that you are requesting will, of course, be published in due course.
It's like, Don Farrell's a nice guy, but don't get me wrong, Pauline, it's like you say, NIAA, what is that exactly? Now, that figure has actually been published, you found it out, and it is twice as much as I thought, because I relied on the annual report last year. Tell us the real figure, what this government gives to an agency that Don Farrell there couldn't even think about what it was doing and why.
Just shy of $4.5 billion a year. And that's under Prime Minister and Cabinet. So anyway, this is what they get, Andrew. It's just absolutely bloody ridiculous. And they advise, this is what I tried to put it out, and it's in the 22-23 budget. We're coming into the 23-24 budget, and he said, it's going to be in the budget papers. He doesn't have a clue. He didn't know what he was talking about. And this is what I find a lot of the time. They don't know what they're talking about. And, couldn't answer the question. He was hopeless.
Look, I watched that whole exchange. You asked him 3 questions and he gave you an answer to none of them, like he didn't know and didn't care. I mean, this agency is doing exactly the consultative work and advisory work and lobbying ministers and presenting evidence to Senate committees and what have you that we're told the Voice should be doing, and we're giving it $4.5 billion a year, and he seemed barely to know it existed. Now, you asked another question about this Voice I also want to show. Now, the person people watching can hear screaming, yes, right next to you is Senator Lydia Thorpe. She's the race-baiting senator who wants a sovereign Aboriginal nation. Here we go.
What do you think about this exchange in Parliament? Was it real accountability or just political deflection? Watch closely and share your honest opinion in the comments below. Your voice matters in this debate.
And you don't even know, the budget papers are already out. Actually, the NIAA is almost $4.5 billion. It employs more than 1,300 people, and its remit appears to be largely the same as the government's somewhat vague intentions for the Voice. That's truth-telling for you. Will the Minister please explain why Australians should not believe the government's ulterior motive in implementing the Uluru Statement is to establish an independent, sovereign black nation in Australia?
Yeah! Order, Senator Thorpe.
I completely reject your proposition.
You got another non-answer, really, apart from, oh, no, I don't agree with you. Pauline, we are going towards apartheid with this, aren't we?
Oh, definitely, Andrew. There's no other reason for it. As Senator Polly said on the floor of Parliament, we need to put this into the Constitution so it cannot be taken out. It's like everything we have in the Constitution. Section 51 states everything that the government should be dealing with, and it's one word. They said, Linda Burney last week, and having a telephone hookup with them, said it's going to be 4 lines. What you're doing is putting this into the Constitution, then the government can use part of it to do whatever they want to implement any part they want into legislation. So it's just, tick this box, give us a yes, and we will just go and do whatever we want to do. And Andrew, I've known about this. They've wanted self-determination. They've been wanting their own state within this country, and it will be a black sovereign state, the same as what they've done with the Inuit people in Nunavut, in Canada, and I tell you what, it will divide this country. Surely can't we see what's happened in Africa with a lot of the nations there, the division that's happened, and this is why I will continue to fight against this, and I want people to really think seriously.
What started as a routine Senate question quickly turned into a political detonation that neither Don Farrell nor the government seemed prepared for. Pauline Hanson wasn't just asking about numbers. She was tearing straight into the machinery behind a $4.5 billion Indigenous bureaucracy. And the moment she brought up the National Indigenous Australians Agency, the tone of the entire exchange shifted. This wasn't policy discussion anymore. This was accusation versus confusion. Because when she asked a simple question, what is the total budget? The response wasn't clarity, it was delay. It will be published in due course. But the problem was simple. The figure already existed. And once Hanson revealed it, just shy of $4.5 billion, the narrative in that room collapsed into something far more uncomfortable. Not just the size of the spending, but the fact that, according to her, the minister didn't even know what it was. And that's where the exchange stopped being about budgets and started becoming about competence. Because in Hanson's framing, this wasn't just administrative confusion. It was proof of a government structure operating at massive scale without clear oversight, while simultaneously pushing forward one of the most contested constitutional proposals in modern Australian politics. And then came the second layer, the voice debate itself. As the discussion widened, the focus shifted from spending to intent, from administration to ideology. Hanson and her supporters tied the agency's functions directly to what they described as the broader constitutional agenda behind the voice. Consulting, advising, implementing, and shaping Indigenous policy at national level. And when asked whether this framework could lead to something far more permanent or transformative, the response from the government side was a rejection of the premise. But not a detailed explanation, not a breakdown, just denial, which, in a heated political hearing, often lands as something else entirely: evasion in the eyes of critics and restraint in the eyes of supporters. But the most explosive moment didn't come from Don Farrell. It came when the conversation spiraled into claims about sovereignty, constitutional change, and national division. Because what followed wasn't a policy explanation, it was a warning narrative. Comparisons to international divisions, references to constitutional entrenchment, and the argument that once something is placed inside the Constitution, it becomes politically irreversible. That is where the debate left the room of policy and entered the space of ideology. And by the end of it, both sides were no longer talking to each other. They were speaking to the country, watching. On one side, lost a claim of bureaucratic overreach, massive spending, and unclear accountability. On the other, rejection of those claims as mischaracterization and political framing. But what made the moment land so heavily wasn't just what was said, it was what wasn't answered cleanly. No direct budget clarity in the moment. No detailed breakdown that settled the question. No shared agreement on what the numbers actually represented. Just competing narratives, each more confident than the other. And in modern politics, that's often where the real battle is decided. Not in the answers given, but in the questions that never get fully resolved.